Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here. Little Joan, you there? There she is. She's sleeping. You comfy? Nice and warm under the blanket, huh? Good girl. All right. So what's going on? Well, looks like the NRA is moving from New York to reincorporate into Texas. Although the sort of sensational headline was the NRA is out of business or declared bankruptcy, which I guess they technically did in order to close down things, but a bit hyperbolic. Gab trends, bit hyperbolic, but the big story here is still this pseudo rally of Trump supporters, and I want to make this very clear. Do not go to this, okay? This is the flyer I talked about. You can see how red it is. It's red, blue, and yellow. This isn't a Trump flyer. This isn't a Trump supporters flyer. It says, when democracy is destroyed, refuse to be silenced. Armed marched on Capitol Hill and all state capitals. And it says, come armed at your personal discretion. January 17th, 12 p.m., Washington Memorial to the White House and all 50 state capitals. Over 200 years ago, our founding fathers fought for the rights of liberties of this nation. Don't let their efforts be in vain. Demand freedom and the corruption. Stand up for liberty. And you could see a Statue of Liberty with 3 stars hand drawn on it. These aren't Trump supporters. Whoever made this is gaslighting you, as they say. I don't know who it is. I have my suspicions, deep state, probably some guys in the FBI or whatever, because as we saw during the Bush administration, these guys need to keep the money flowing to them. Now, I thought the logical choice would have been to transition over to Antifa and start throwing those guys in jail to justify their existence. But who knew they were so partisan that they'd actually just sit on their hands until Trump was out of office and turn their sights on the Trump supporters. And Antifa, too. I think they're going to throw Antifa in. They're just going to throw them in with the Trump supporters and claim they're all the same thing. It's all white supremacy to these maniacs. By the way, this is a couple articles by Jordan Satchel on Substack. And he seems to be a new reporter. I don't really know him that well. He writes for the Federalist. And he's calling this out as a fake. He's saying that the FBI is pushing this, and some of the various mainstream medium, but the only groups that were right wing that had a potential protest going was the Boogaloo Boys, and they canceled it. As he says in the article, there hasn't been a single additional right of center group that I'm aware of that has announced that they will participate in these, quote, armed marches. It seems that this claimed threat is exclusive to the Boogaloo movement. What also remains completely unreported is that the group itself appears to have canceled their D.C. rally. Plans to have a demonstration in Washington, D.C. are canceled and will not move forward, a memo posted Sunday on the website reads. It's difficult to estimate the exact number of supporters for the Boogaloo movement. Its main Facebook page, which has since been shut down, had accumulated around 30,000 followers. Additionally, Facebook has removed hundreds, not thousands, of accounts associated with the group on their platform. The Boogaloo movement could be totally fake, or it's probably not. There's probably a handful of right-wingers, I guess you would call them, anarchists, ANCAPs. I don't know how they would, classify their own political beliefs. Let me see if I got the other thing. Yeah, he's got 2 articles on this. And the second article, hoax, the FBI continues to leak warnings about 50 state pro-Trump uprisings that are not actually happening. The FBI continues leaks warning. And this is going right out to all the major news networks because this is the narrative. This is the narrative they've decided on. They've decided that the riot wasn't just a riot, wasn't just a bunch of knuckleheads going into the Capitol. It was an insurrection. Even though they had no guns and no plan to actually take over the government, that's what they're calling it. And they just say it and say it and say it and say it and say it. And people believe it because they still trust television. Don't trust television. I'm not saying the riot was good. It was stupid. It was dumb. And people got killed. And that should not have happened. But that being said, don't turn it into something it wasn't. It wasn't an armed insurrection. The closest thing to armaments these guys had was somebody had a spear with a American flag on it. They had a bunch of flag poles. And that's about it. Somebody had some zip ties, I think. But there wasn't... These guys didn't bring guns. There were rumors of pipe bombs, but no one's actually figured out everything that happened yet. And they have determined that at least 2 people who had stormed the Capitol, as they keep saying, one was a pretty hardcore BLM guy who, went in there dressed as a Trump supporter, egged on Trump supporters, pretended to be a journalist documenting it, even got on CNN, which is no surprise. He went on CNN and they let him say whatever he wanted. Oh, I was just there to document things. And they had him alongside a filmmaker, I think. But my understanding is he was not credentialed. And now the police have arrested him because there's plenty of videotape of this thing. And they're going after more people. And there's also the son of a judge. He was there. I don't know why these guys didn't wear masks, but go figure. I would have masked the hell up. You wouldn't have been able to identify me. But these guys, they went in there. And there'll probably be a handful more. Now, that's not to say that Trump supporters who went in there don't bear some responsibility. Some of them certainly do. But understand the timing of this too. They started going into the Capitol before Trump finished his speech. Okay? If they're Trump supporters, why did they do that? Why didn't they hear the end of the speech? They were there to see Trump. Again, I'm not alleging a massive conspiracy that the whole thing was fake. But I am saying there were some leftists in the crowd, and they were there to start trouble. Just like Antifa is always there to start trouble. They want to collapse the state. Starting trouble is what they do. So, but this FBI bulletin, or these leaks, this is very telling of the left's tactics. It's like they prod and prod and prod and prod and prod, and when you finally slap the prod away, they go, you're attacking me! You're so violent! This is what they want. They want you there. They want you to come to the Capitals or the inauguration, and they want you to do something crazy. If you do it, they will come down like the hammer of Democrats, and they will go after anybody in your organization, and they will destroy you. They will throw you in jail simply because of your association with people. They're already trying to do that with the rioters. They're going after people. Not because it was, any particularly bad thing. And there were a few bad things, but I'm saying not that it was planned. They're going after just anybody. They're investigating people. The Democrats are out of their minds. They're screaming that they all could have died. There was an article from NBC I talked about where they said some of the members of on Capitol Hill, some of the House members think that the other Republicans want to kill them. I mean, that's paranoia. That's crazy. No one in the Congress is that nuts. Okay? They're just not that nuts. They tend to be very boring people. The people who are very, very angry are some of these fringe leftists that you cut loose last summer, that you encouraged last summer, and now they're still running around. Okay? And they're going to keep running around until they all go to jail. And as I stated in the past, this is the same pattern that happened in the 60s. Most of the hippies were pretty peaceful people. That was the whole movement. It was all one of peace. But there were a handful that were hardened by the heavy-handed response of the right. And they beat up the hippies and they threw them in jail all the time. But, they usually didn't go further than that. They would spend a few days in jail and then they'd be cut loose on the street. They'd get called a freak and they'd be sent on their way. But a few of them got hardened by that. A few of them committed more serious crimes. And those hardened hippies became the hardcore communists. They became domestic terrorists. And they did horrible things. One of them tried to blow up the Capitol building in '83, and Clinton pardoned her. One of the members, he pardoned, even though the group was caught with 600 pounds of explosives and actually set off a bomb inside the Capitol. Their sentence was 58 years in prison. She had served 16, and Clinton let her out. She now serves on a board that fundraises for BLM. I mean, can you imagine the opposite being true on the other side of politics? That some right-wing lunatic who set off a bomb in the Capitol would then be pardoned by a Republican president and then end up part of a fundraising group for an organization that would be lauded by every major company in the United States? I don't think you can. Although, I guess stranger things that happened. I mean, Robert Byrd was a senator till he died. And he was in the very bad Southerner group that wore white. And Joe Biden spoke at his funeral and spoke glowingly of him. Yes, even though the guy did renounce those guys in white, I don't think he should have been senator. I don't think he should have been in government after being in an extremist group like that. But, I guess the Democrats are okay with some people getting forgiveness. And their political opponents, well, they get no mercy. The FBI is making a lot of noise about this. I didn't hear him making a lot of noise this summer when half the country was on fire. I didn't hear a lot of FBI pronouncements about members of Antifa being arrested. And I thought they would, because they did that with terrorists in the United States. Not that there weren't terrorists here, but the kind of guys the FBI caught, half of them were mentally ill and completely incapable of doing anything without the FBI's help. They just lured them into a sting and then announced, oh, this guy would have killed everybody, and we're throwing him in jail for the rest of his life. How about arresting the guys who actually do damage to cities? How about arresting the guys who actually burn things? How about those guys? I think this is a trap. Two-part. One, to lure out any of these wackos and capture them. And number two, this would be a great political coup for the Democrats. Biden and Harris could then announce, aha, see, there's white supremacy everywhere. In 50 state capitals, these racists showed up with weapons and they tried to take over our states. Now we're going to disarm them. See why we need gun control? See, that's the move. Don't go to this. If you know someone who's even thinking this way, tell them not to go. Don't do anything this week. Don't go to any protest, no matter how mild. Stay at home. Let the inauguration pass. Okay? The inauguration is on Wednesday. The 17th is this Sunday. Do not go. Trump does not want you to go. Do not go. It's a trap, as Admiral Akbar said. Let's make it clear. It's a trap.